My name's Richard Brook, and I worked in the semiconductor industry for many years. After that, I eventually ended up taking a job at Air Liquide, where I was working on sourcing. Ultimately ended up running the helium business in the Americas, which extends from Canada to Argentina. We did sourcing and sales to the internal Air Liquide affiliates, and since then I left in 2019, where I'm running a consulting business that works on Helium-3 and Helium-4 and a number of other interesting products, software, and even equipment that can cool down an ISO without using with a liquefier. So I have a number of different business interests and consulting activities in the helium world.
Great. Now we're here at the end of day one of the event. You're of course on stage this morning, so could you give a brief overview of what you discussed?
Sure. This morning I gave a talk on the helium supply between 2025 and 2023, and although we can say that the supply situation has moved from a shortage market to a long market, there's also indications that there's plenty of additional opportunities for expanded applications for helium that can help absorb all that extra helium. And at the end of the day, even though the market is expected to stay long, there's also the possibility that the market can actually move to some degree of tightness, at least towards the end of that 5-year period, where we'll start to see some of these new applications coming to fruition.
Sure. And to carry on what you're saying there, you touched on new and upcoming sources as well while you were on stage. So what are some of the notable new or maybe expanding sources to look forward to?
Sure. Well, there's a number of new sources that are coming on stream. The largest to come on stream is likely to be the new Qatar 4 operation, which is scheduled to start in 2027. But they're planning on expanding in Russia, where they've got some additional capacity. This will flow into China, and then there's additional expansions planned even in Algeria, and then there's a number of smaller developing companies here in North America that are talking about expanding and also getting into production in the first place, the largest of which would add 800 million cubic feet to the market if it were to come to fruition. This would be a new facility that's located close to where the Exxon facility is located, called Blue Spruce. And so there could be additional amounts of helium entering into the market, as much as almost double the existing supply. But much of that product, although it might be possible, is likely to not be developed if the market stays long as it is. So I don't think we'll see all that product coming into the market at the same time. At the same time, many of the major companies have been investing in storage, and storage is becoming an increasing factor in this business, because with the market being long, the majors, Air Liquide, Linde, and Air Products, are all putting helium into the ground, and as you fill up those caverns with helium, those individual caverns are each themselves going to become like a separate new source of helium. So this too will have to be reckoned with at some point in the future.
Sure. And just looking at all of those potential sources, when and if they do come online, how will that have an overall impact on the helium sourcing market?
Well, ultimately, it'll force the market to stay longer for an extended period of time, and it'll take longer for any new applications to absorb the extra capacity. But as we were discussing, there are a number of growing market segments in the helium world these days. Certainly, the semiconductor industry is growing at a breakneck pace, and then, of course, aerospace is growing at double-digit rates as well. So there's a cause for a positive outlook on both of those areas, because with the added applications that are occurring in the space business that are driving more launches, there's an ever-increasing amount of helium being used in that area. And we're talking about all sorts of electronic devices that are used by many people and used in a ubiquitous manner across the planet, where they're increasingly adding functionality that connects those handheld devices to satellites. And the more applications that you have that you carry around with you that are connecting to satellites, that means the more capacity they'll need. The more capacity that's needed, it'll drive more launches to add more satellites to those constellations that provide that service. And all of that will use more helium. So this is a bright spot in the helium world at the moment.
Sure. And just to continue that train of thought on demand, where's this going? How do you see this? Get your crystal ball out. How's this going to go over the next few years?
Well, so I would say that it's highly likely that the annual growth rate will be in the 4% range going forward, combined for all the different market segments. But as I said, some of those segments will grow significantly faster. Some are not growing very much at all. You might even argue that the MRI business is shrinking a little bit because of demand destruction to some extent and the move to machines that don't use as much helium. But the bright spots are the aerospace business, which is being driven by the satellite launches necessary to support these new constellations, which, as I said, are supporting all these new applications that are coming out. And then, of course, the semiconductor industry, where more advanced devices that are being produced by the world's leading semiconductor companies are using ever more helium because they are requiring that the wafers make more trips in and out of the chambers, and the more trips in and out of the chambers that they need for more layers on the devices, the more helium that they use. So there's a linear function between the number of layers that are used to build up the device and the amount of helium. And those devices that use more layers are all mostly related to the high-end leading-edge semiconductors that are all being used for things like artificial intelligence and the most advanced processors that are out there. So that is also just about the fastest growing segment of the semiconductor industry, as data servers and server farms are expanding at essentially what could be described as a breakneck pace to keep up with artificial intelligence. All of this drives more helium consumption.
Sure, and just to quickly touch on the event, we're about halfway through now, so how have you found the last day?
Well, we went through the first day today, and I thought the presentations were excellent, and we're looking forward to tomorrow's presentations, which I think will also be just as well received as the presentations were today.
Sure, and one final question, Rich, before I let you go. If you had a message to those watching who maybe couldn't be in the room today, what would be your message to them?
Well, maybe next year you should buy a ticket. I think that would be my message, is that if you missed this year's show, there'll be another show probably next year, and you should consider attending, because I think at shows like this, you really do get a perspective on the market that you don't get by not attending. And at the end of the day, you do get exposed to a whole different number of aspects of the helium business that you otherwise would miss out on if you're not in attendance.
Couldn't agree anymore. But Rich, Brook, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.